What's going on, everyone? This is the new UTB18, or the 1/18th scale Capra. UTB Ultimate Trail Buggy is what they have that name based on. But what you have here is a smaller version of the original Capra, but with all new parts throughout. Now, if you're a big fan of the Capra, you'll be a smaller fan of this one, but you know what I mean. This is a new entry into Axial's lineup, and it's made to kind of fill the gap of like the ECX Temper, the old school low-C MRC, if you remember any of those. It's got some 3.6-inch tall Nitto trail grapplers on some Raceline style wheels here. You may have already seen videos on this. I got this a little bit late, but finally able to get a chance to get it here on the bench. And the biggest thing is, I think, to get right off the bat is that 1/18 scale is a little bit misleading. Now, coincidentally, Traxxas released a 1/18 scale basically the exact same time. And I do think it was a coincidence. These projects have to be done so far in advance, and for them to just land at the same time, it is, you know, I think a funny coincidence at best. If you compare it to like the TRX4M, which is supposed to be 1/18 scale, it just dwarfs it in comparison. So it's hard to really compare the two. This one really just needs to sit on its own. I really think this fits more of like a 1/12th or 1/14th scale personally. It does have 155 wheels, which with a 3.6-inch tall tire, there are 155 wheel options out already. Those are kind of like for the scale, like the super scale world, there's some 155 stuff, but you could switch to a 1.9. This runs a standard 12mm hex on these new 1/18th scale axles. The axles look great. They've got a fabricated center style section, so just like the Curry F9, and then the outers bolt on, including the C-hub and then the knuckles, which is nice because in the rear then it's the same center section with just the outer straight axle portal put on there, which means that you could easily convert this to a four-wheel steer option if you like. Kind of a cool little bonus there. Now, the steering on this does use a CVD style universal, where the rotation ball portion of it is inside of the top portion of the portal. So all kind of tucked in there pretty tight. The Nitto tires that are included in here are glued onto these Raceline wheels. The tires have no foams in them at all, and they're pretty soft. So I do expect that when driving, these tires are gonna roll over pretty badly. So replacing the tires with a tire that has foam, possibly on a beadlock wheel, probably something I would suggest as well. One of the first things that I noticed about this though is that the appearance as it sits here kind of looks a little bit toy grade. And I think that's a lot due to the ride height. When you pull it out of the box, it sits so high. If it sits nice and low, it actually looks pretty good. And once you actually have it in hand, it doesn't appear toy grade. Everything actually seems really nice. If you're someone who plans to do modification, it's got a full-size servo, it's got a 380 size motor, so it's going to have a good amount of power, and it's going to have tons of electronic options because of it. Now, it does come with a 2-in-1 ESC. I think that's to be expected. It's the ESC and the receiver. The radio is this little guy here. This is an SLT2. It is a smaller radio, but it's super comfortable. I actually really like this thing. Super handy, super small, super comfortable to drive one-handed, which I do most of the time. And I really like just the feel of this radio. The small size make it plenty comfortable for a kid to carry around as well. For just a basic, inexpensive radio, I don't know, I'm just overly pleased with the feel of it. The style of the cage is Capra. It's just a smaller version of the Capra. There's not much to say there. You either like that or you don't. They did do some cool things like with the clipless body mounting, and it's got kind of like this Lego man hand underneath here, and it just goes down and it clips over one of the bars of the tube. Super basic, simple, but it works. It goes in there. It's easiest just to kind of push from the underside to pop it up, and it goes in. There's a brace here on the front side with a little tongue, and that goes down to just hold the battery in place. Under the hood, a little bit of a mess of wires. You just kind of shove the battery and balance connectors down in there, and then this truck has so many LEDs that you've got those wires going around, and then the servo wire kind of kicking up and around. The routing of the wiring isn't, like, especially for the servos, just kind of up and around in the way a little bit. It's not that big a deal, and it all fits in there without much hassle, but you will see that there is quite a lot of wiring happening underneath of that hood. But I mentioned the lights because there is a lot of them. I've got the battery plugged in already. You turn them on, You've got the front forward lights here in the grille. You've got some rock lights pointing right down where you'd want them. And then you've got a nice, decently bright light bar. The drive shafts do have a metal rotation point there, but the bulk of the drive shaft is plastic. The style of the transmission in there looks just like mini Capra. They took everything and just kind of scaled it down and then, designed to fit. You're gonna see a lot of things that look very familiar to you if you pick this up and you already knew what a Capra was. At full extension of the shocks, I measure the wheelbase about 227, and at full compression, it's closer to about 232, 233. Those numbers kind of straddle that 9-inch line, so a little bit under or a little bit over depending on where you're measuring. Track width, I measured about 195 millimeters, which is about 7 3/4. Now, if you had thoughts of trying to put these type of axles underneath of a class 1 type scale truck or things like that, you possibly could if you were pretty ginger with them, because the stuff, the components are going to be a little bit smaller. It's got, smaller than standard wheel nuts. It's definitely not like 1/10 scale stuff. Now, along with the release of this truck, they also had a bunch of upgrades ready to go already, and I've got those here. They've got overdrive gears for the front portal boxes already. Then we've got some aluminum links, both for the front suspension, the rear suspension, and steering. Now, like I said, it already comes with metal links on the bottom, but they're a little bit smaller diameter. So these are aluminum links, and they're gonna have a nice smooth transition from the plastic rod end across the link and then back onto the other side of the rod end. Nice little deal there. They've got aluminum upper link mounts. This is gonna be for the rear, and it actually raises the link mount position a little bit. That's going to be to adjust the anti-squat, which can help with climbing depending on how you have your suspension set up. They also have brass 12mm hexes and brass portal box covers with a little bit extra meat added to them. A significant amount of weight. They say 30 grams. I already have the 650 milliamp battery installed in here, which was included. So I'm going to take this out today on the rocks and see what it will do. Drive this little thing. Here's how this goes. All right, just got back. Did get a battery pack run through on this little guy. First off, I can see the potential. There is potential here. In the stock form, if you're an enthusiast crawler already, you're going to feel the RTR kind of hiccups. It's tall, it needs some weight, a few things like that. It's a little bit jumpy on the throttle, but if you're getting this for a novice user, I think that it's going to be much more at home outdoors than any of the smaller scale options out there. So this is a great fit in that case. The steering, super responsive, being that it has a full-size servo on this smaller size car. Overall, the RTR package, pretty decent. It's got a lot of room for improvement in performance, but as far as this thing just pulling it out of the box and going and hitting the rocks, it definitely drives pretty well. It drives well enough that it does give me the drive to want to do more with it, because the base is pretty decent and you're going to be able to improve this thing to be a super fun little, mid-size crawler. So I'm actually kind of excited about it and I want to do more. So look forward to that if you're interested in this little mini Capra. In the end, is $250 worth it? That's the biggest question. It's at the top end of that. I would have liked to have seen it be a little bit more aggressive. I would have loved to see closer to the $199 range, but $50 is a huge difference in price. So everything's more expensive now as well. It's more expensive to build RC cars than it used to be. So prices are going to continue to, creep further up, and we're all going to have to kind of readjust our barometer. Would I still have liked to have seen it a little bit cheaper? Yes. But am I upset at this for $250? No. I think that it'll be a decent buy for someone who's really interested in this size. Either way, I'm looking forward to doing more with this platform because it's this fun little mid-size. Personally, I think I would enjoy this size more than like the 24 scale. But that's a personal preference of mine, and you may feel different. You guys will have to let me know. Is it something that looks interesting to you, or is it something that is just too much of an oddball for you to get into another scale of? As always, I appreciate you guys for watching these videos, and I think I've already got some ideas of what my plans are for this. So stay tuned for that. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.